The voice has come, and Facebook is on. Okay. So everybody, welcome to History Matters, and so does coffee. Um, I don't know what's going to happen in this episode. But before we grapple with what's going to happen in this episode, I want to turn to my wonderful partner in crime, Annie, who will explain the rules of the game. I know there are a lot of people here who are not normally here, and I'll talk a little bit about the here. But before I do that, Annie, why don't you give us a go?
All right, I'm going to give it a go. Good morning, everybody. My name's Annie Evans from New American History. This is our community on Fridays. So, if it's your first time, you're part of the community. If you've been here 100 times, you're part of the community. So, we gather together every Friday. We have a very active chat. We have a group of regulars who've been with us for over 3 years, but we are always welcoming new folks in. We don't know what we're going to talk about today. This is going to be a little atypical, but either way, we would look for questions down in the Q&A. The chat is going to be on fire. None of us can keep up with it that fast, but I'll come back in about 30 minutes or whenever Joanne's ready for me, and I will look in the Q&A to prompt the rest of our discussion. So I'll see you on a little bit.
Thanks, Annie. I have to ask people to stop sending farm animals up the right side of the screen because I'm going to not be able to stop laughing. And um, we got a lot to talk about, folks. I also want to say I know, I realize a lot of people here who have not been here before. And as I always say, if you are here for the first time or one of the first times in chat, tell people because you will get a really robust welcome because we really are a community here. And I'll be talking about community some in the conversation that follows. Now, I named this episode Reckoning because that just seemed to encompass a lot of things, that word. Some of it being us reckoning with this moment, right? How do we reckon with the election? How do we reckon with where we are now? How do we reckon with whatever the heck is going to be coming? In some ways, you could also say this is a reckoning, right? We are reckoning with some things now that at least a chunk of the United States is, not all of the United States. So I urge you not to take this as a sign that the entire country and everyone in it thinks one way and that you are alone because you are not, and they don't. But still, we have to reckon with what this says about us as a nation. Um, I think like probably everyone here, is reeling a little bit, and trying to process this. I, for like a split second, I thought maybe this is, too early for me to beam in here to talk about this. And then I realized that was really not the way to go, partly because I myself wanted to be with this community this morning, and also because I realized I'm guessing there's a lot of folks out there really, thank you, really looking for this community right now. As I said, I'm going to be talking about community a lot. Now, before we start, just a couple of ground rules, because this is going to be an I don't know conversation. Um, and I will say that, you know, every at the end of every one of our sessions, this is our 241st show, episode. At the end of every one, I say, thank you for engaging in the conversation of democracy. And I will never stop saying that. Part of engaging in that conversation of democracy is that we have laid a groundwork for this moment in a way. This is what part of what I was thinking of this morning. There is a community here of sorts. Some of you have, met out there in the real world in real time. People here in this community have been there for me in a variety of ways that I never would have expected. So in coming here virtually and now for some people in real life, we have been coming together as a community for this is the 241st time that we have done so to talk about history and what it tells us about the politics of the moment, what's happening around us. And we're sure going to need that to come, but we're good at it, right? We've been doing this a lot. I think we should all breathe that in because I think that's important to understand. And I'm proud of us for having done that, not in anticipation of this moment, but here we are. Okay, so I want to say a few things before we plunge in. So number one, obviously, we need to talk, we need to engage. I do not have big answers. I really don't. And I can talk a little bit about, history or not. I'm going to let this conversation go where it organically goes. But I'm not going to be able to say, this is what we should do, because I'm still, like everybody else, processing this. And there are a lot of people, particularly on social media right now, offering all kinds of, here's what we have to do now, suggestions in the best possible faith, right? Wanting to be helpful. And I understand that. I also understand I'm seeing people respond to that by saying, well, this is a bunch of rah-rah nonsense. Stop. So I want to give ourselves and everybody around us some space, because what happened is to say big is ridiculously small. What happened is important and unpredictable, and it's going to have a major impact on all of us in one way or another. And none of us knows what that means. So don't pounce on the people who are trying to offer ways to immediately act. I think we all need to give ourselves, and I'm going to be doing this for the next few days, give ourselves space to absorb this moment and get ourselves together and deal with what we're thinking and feeling right now. And that matters. Not that you need my permission to do that, but the main point I want to make here is I can't offer a poof solution to this. There are no poof solutions to this. Less poofy solutions are going to take some time and thought. And as of the Friday after the election, I don't even have a lot of less poofy suggestions. So number two, I want to say that as we engage here this morning, let's continue to be the community that we always have been. And by that, I mean no mudslinging at each other, right? We're all having really big emotions right now. I don't even have to guess, right? Because I certainly am, and they kind of are varying from moment to moment, but rage is a big one. So I don't throw um, mud at the people who have gathered here together to try and deal with this in some way and figure it out. It's going to be probably hard to not respond with emotion, but I encourage you to keep the idea of community first and foremost. That will be the way that we can most helpfully be here for each other as we address whatever it is we're going to be addressing this morning. Um, okay, so a couple of things. I think it's important that we're here. And I say that in part because on Wednesday morning, I had my undergrad seminar called The Creation of the American Politician. Yep, I'm teaching that this semester. And I knew that the students, probably like me, were not going to be able to beam into that class and suddenly begin discussing a book. So I opened the discussion. I set ground rules. We were not going to talk about candidates. We were not going to talk about political parties. We were going to talk about what they were thinking at the moment. We were going to talk about what they wanted to talk about in the realm of what does this mean and what does this tell us about democracy, and they were asking questions, some of which I could answer, some of which I couldn't. And then they all came up to me after, pretty much all of them, and said, thank you for making that space, because there's nowhere else that they have had that space just to talk. Um, that's why we're here, right? So that confirmed me in my decision that we need to be here for each other today, even while everything is so fresh. Um, just the chance to be in a room together and share a knowingness together, calmly with each other as an us, as a we. I'm coming back to that, um, that mattered. That mattered. They all said, I feel calmer now because we were just doing this all together. So anyway, that's going to be part of my message this morning, but that's a very long way of saying no mudslinging, and it matters that we're here. Now, I'll say a few things that we probably do know. Um, that, so yesterday and the day before, um, I've already done a podcast and a panel and a live, people came and said, "Do you want to talk about this?" I was like, "No, but I will." And in doing that, I talked a lot about what I've talked about here before, and probably even specifically using the election of 1800, because you know that that's what I'm going to do, because I've talked about it a lot. That was a fraught election that almost came to violence, in which one party tried to overturn, or at least considered overturning, a presidential election. And the reason I bring that up in part is because of the response to it from good old Thomas Jefferson, in which someone said to him, "What would you have done if it had all gone crazy? What would you have done if there had been violence? What would you have done if they actually did overturn the election?" And his response was basically the process, the political process, our constitutional political process. That if things had all gone wrong, maybe we would have had a convention. Maybe we would have needed to tweak the Constitution. We would have wound up the clock again. I think he says something like it would have been like a clock or a watch run down, and we would have wound it up again and kept going. Now, that's very facile, I realize, and nothing is as easy as that. But his larger point, that the process is the key, that's really important. The Constitution is our framework of government, and it structures our government. But equally, if not more important, it sets process on paper. That's what the framers of the Constitution were thinking. We need to create a process to put in motion that will remain there as a stable process that we can come back to when we need to come back to it. So that's important to remember. Now, that said, there are going to be ways in which this process already has been under attack in various ways, and I cannot predict the ways in which that will be weakened, eroded, or attacked coming down the road. There will be ways in which that will happen. I just don't know what those are. I'm talking about process now specifically because of that, because we need to bear in mind the importance of that process. We need to remember that it's there, and that if it's under attack, we need to do what we can to defend it or support people who are trying to defend it. And again, I'm going to say things that are going to sound frustratingly vague this morning, because 72 hours is not enough to wrap our heads around whatever the heck moment that we're in. That said, our political process, which is the key, which is the pact, our constitutional political process, which is the pact that we all share that creates us as a nation, it will be under attack in coming years, months, I don't know, years. And that's important to realize, and it's important to acknowledge and get in the front of your brain the fact that there is a process, the fact that it's important, and the fact that in one way or another, we're going to have to find ways to stand up for it. I think in the same way that so many of us have taken democracy for granted because we didn't have to think about it, and then it gets challenged and suddenly we have to think about it and we appreciate it in a different way. I think the same thing is true of our constitutional political process and the rule of law, right? I think we need to be aware that they exist. We need to be aware that they have a long history. We need to be aware that there are processes in place, even when they're under attack, that are important. Process matters. So in whatever comes our way down the pike, don't let the smokescreen hide that fact, because that's important. The process is there, and number one, and number two, that process is what joins us together. It is a pact we have with each other, that Constitution, what it means, what it offers, what it suggests, what it represents. it joins us together. It doesn't mean we've ever been all together, ever, ever. But it is something that is there and is important and in ways that, who the heck knows what Thomas Jefferson was thinking, whether he was thinking along these lines or not. And at this point, I don't care. But what I do care about is we need to be recognizing the existence and importance of that process and plugging that in as we are thinking about and experiencing whatever the heck is to come. Okay, so that's one point that I wanted to make. The larger point that I want to make here um, has to do with community. This is not going to be a surprise. I've been talking about community and we for years at this point, but now I mean it in a different way. Um, First off, I'll say at the outset, I'm a straight white person. And so I, right out front, will say, um, I am facing different challenges or fewer challenges than a lot of other people might be facing at this particular moment. And I will acknowledge that. I will also say that as a woman, I share with a lot of you some of the challenges that we're facing right now. I put that out there, but the reason I mention that is that how do you take care of yourself and how do you take care of other people in other spaces who may be challenged, who may feel isolated, who may not know what to do in a given moment when things are unpredictable? And the answer to that is community. Community is how you do that. It's how you take care of yourself. It's how you take care of others. And I think communities of all kinds, not just like political communities, but all kinds of communities. I don't know, religious church communities, mosques, synagogues, sewing circles. I don't know. Whatever the heck kinds of communities you have around you, and you've got some in some kind, it might even just be your family. If you're a single person like me, you've got friends. I guess I'd say my community is friends. And you guys, you guys are a big part of my community. But regardless, the way to take care of yourself and the way to help other people if and when they need help is community. And here's the important thing to think about now as we think about community. Um, and I've said this a couple times in recent days, and I've gotten mostly positive reactions. And there are a lot of people responding to anything anyone says right now with that doesn't matter. And I'm not there. I will never be there. But I think this matters a lot. Think about it. We can talk about it when we open things up for conversation. We are in a really, really different headspace than we were in 2016. Donald Trump gained the presidency in 2016. We were stunned. We were surprised. We didn't know what he would do. He didn't know what he could do. That was its moment. This is a different moment, and it's a different moment for two ways. Number one, we knew what could come. It's why we were fighting so hard. We knew what it was. We knew what could come. We weren't unprepared for this possibility. Some people, because of the extremism of the threats and promises coming from that side, probably for the first time, maybe have realized what this threat means. I think a lot of people, and I'll say particularly, yes, white men and then white people, have been able to go along not thinking about the immediacy of certain kinds of threats that now I think we all have to think about, and they were right in front of us, like at Madison Square Garden, in the recent past. But what all of this means is we're in a different headspace now. We are, for reasons both good and bad, we know what we're looking at. And because it was so extreme, because we were all together in responding to it, with shock, that we have come together in our response to that. And I can say this having gone to Michigan and Pennsylvania and whatever it is that I've been doing, talking about the election and talking about democracy heading up to the election, what I saw and what I felt and what I have seen, and I realize it's ridiculous, but I'm going to say it anyway, even on social media for all of its horrors, everywhere I look, what I see are people who have come together in groups and want to figure out where to go next, what to do next, what's happening. There is a sense of community, even as there is a sense of community in a destructive way. There is a sense of community in a positive way in response to what we've been seeing that I think really matters. It matters. We have a sense of a we now, we definitely did not have in 2016. And it's partly a we that we have gained and realized, partly in some supporting Kamala Harris, for those of us who did support Kamala Harris, partly because she, in running, was up against something very definite. So whether we were supporting her or fighting against something else, we came together in an active way. And the number of people, I have no way of judging this. I'm sure there are data people out in the world trying to figure this out. The number of people knocking on doors and sending postcards and making phone calls and joining, overturning technological systems and joining on, Zoom conversations, and the number of engaged people coming together in groups to figure things out and act, that's a force. It really is. It's a force of, it's a psychological force to know that that's there. It's a potential political force. It's an emotional force. It really matters that it's there. I say this not just to pontificate with generalities. I say this because this is how I'm thinking now. I feel that there's more of a we experiencing this moment for all that it entails, whatever it entails, with me. People of different kinds. Already people have been, on social media saying, what do we do? What do I do? What can I do this week? I don't know yet. I don't know. But what I do know is if we're coming together to talk about that and figure that out and watch out for each other, that's huge. That's bigger than any political system. It is us, people coming together. That's a power that maybe we haven't thought about, but I think it's a huge, huge thing to think about in that way, just in taking care of ourselves, taking care of other people, figuring out what to do next, responding to what's happening now. I also want to mention community in a different way before I open things up. So last night, I took part in a panel here at Yale, uh, just a group of a political scientist, a journalist, two historians, three historians, just to talk about the election in whatever way we wanted to talk about it. And someone there said, I see this as a party realignment. And my visceral response to that was no. And the reason I said no is we're not talking regular party politics anymore. We aren't. We're not in a realm where one party says something different and another party says something different and they'll figure out a new message and we'll go forward. We're not. I don't know if we're talking parties. I have never considered MAGA to be a party, and I don't think there is a Republican Party. And the Democratic Party exists as a party, but doesn't fully know what it is, and hasn't bound that together yet. And what I suggested last night, and again, this is off the top of my head, so don't hold me responsible for it, but it's a thought. In American history, when there have been moments of successful, positive change, they have been bottom up. They have not been top down. And what I felt at this panel last night was a lot of people, they were thinking about and asking, what can the Democratic Party do next? What kind of candidate can they get? What kind of message can they have? And that's still thinking top down. And I'm not saying that the party can't have a better message, can't come together better. They should. But I don't know that that's the solution. I don't know. And what I found myself thinking about last night, and again, this gets us back to community, is bottom up organizing and coming together really matters because it's about community. It's about person to person. It's about people communicating with each other. It's about routine. It's about us. It's about people. It's who we are in real life in one way or another. So, I'm not sure where we're going, and I'm not sure if, you know, a two-party system is going to make sense in the current moment. I don't know. Right now, I'm not convinced that there's a party solution on one side or a party in existence on the other side. And, Heather and I have talked about this before this moment, about how in American history generally, political parties have been fluid. They come, they go. We're used to things being very standard, and they haven't always been really standard. And, in our lifetimes, it's been Democrats versus Republican, but it hasn't always been Democrats versus Republican. And parties have come and gone throughout the 19th century in a way that, we don't even imagine. So we're in a sort of hyper fluid moment when it comes to parties. We should enable ourselves to think constructively and together if we need to or want to outside of the box. I don't know what that means either. But these are the things I'm offering you, the things that are on my mind and that I've been thinking about in the last 72 hours. So one thing I do know, I don't know a lot, but one thing I do know is community. Truly. Think community. Think community for yourself and your touching earth in this moment. Think community for whatever we do going ahead. Talk to your people, find more people who become your people to talk to, build community so that you see others, so that they see you, so that you can help others, so they can help you, so you can just feel grounded as a person in a moment when we just don't know what comes next. I've been talking about contingency so much over the last 240 episodes because as a historian, that is all we are, right? You never know what's coming next. Contingency, we look forward in time, not backward in time as we live through life. And I've talked about moments of extreme contingency, like the 1790s when democracy was up for debate, like the 1850s when the future of slavery was being debated, like the 1960s when civil rights were being won and fought. And now, when in a different way than in 1790, democracy is on the table. It is. And, in this moment, we are living maybe as extreme a contingency moment, possibly. I hate to, as a historian, I always say, don't say first, most, only, unique. You're almost always wrong. Um, this is a pretty enormous contingent moment. This is pretty extreme contingency. So see, I've been preparing you for this moment too by spouting off about contingency for 240 episodes. We really don't know what's coming next. I don't know what's coming next. Anyone who tells you that they know what's coming next probably doesn't know what's coming next. That's way contingent. I mean, for me to sit here and say to you calmly, like, maybe we won't have parties. I don't know. That's extreme contingency. But because of that, so the two words, contingency community, the two C's, actually, and a third C, because this is the National Council for History Education, contingency, community, and classrooms. Okay, contingency, community, classrooms. Contingency, because it's here and we have to reckon with it and remember that and figure out what that means. Community, because that's going to be the way we're going to find our way through this. Classrooms, because we need to help our students in this moment and because we need to be teaching students just in a general way about what democracy is and what democracy means, not in a partisan way, in a real way. Here's how the constitutional system was set up to work. Let's read the Constitution together. Let's talk about communities. Like, I don't know the solution to this either. The last class I did, I just let the students talk. So contingency community classrooms, the triple C. I think all of those things are important. I think they're important so that we all can come together as things develop. We can respond together. We can maybe plan together for the good of each one of us ourselves, for the good of you and yours, right? Your larger circle. And ultimately, I think for the good of us all. Okay. That's my first bid here in what I have to say. Um, Let me move my first bid notes out of the way. Chocolate, that's a good C2, and coffee. Yeah. Oh, okay. So those of you who are here, and there's like a bug flying around right in front of me. Anyway, like a fruit fly or something. At any rate, for those of you who haven't been here before, every week, believe it or not, for 240 weeks, I have a mug. Thank you. You're saying mug, mug. I have a mug that relates in some way to, oh, a little coffee cup is coming up. Man, you guys have been unleashed now with the floating emojis. I have a coffee cup that relates to whatever theme we're talking about. I'm in New Haven, which is why the lighting is weird and everything is, anyway, this is not ideal. However, um, I don't have a wide selection of mugs in New Haven, and the one mug that I've been using is remarkably useful and necessary right now. Particularly today, I'm going to revise it today. So, Mr. Grumpy, I've been holding up Mr. Grumpy for weeks. I have to say for today, he's Mr. Outrage. He's not just Mr. Grumpy. He's Mr. Angry, right? He really is, for me, at least. Name your bad emotion and pin it on Mr. Grumpy, and he will represent that for you. But anyway, so that is the mug choice for today. But okay, I want to open things up, and let me open chat.
Okay, so I think we might have broken a record. There's 25 questions.
Wow, okay. And before we even start them, I'm going to say, like I said, I'm sure I'm going to be saying I don't know a lot, because we're kind of Mr. Grumpy looks constipated. Thank you, because we're all in this together, in this moment together, right? So we're all processing it, and that's why I'm glad we're all here for that reason. But okay, let's see what we can do.
All right, I cannot imagine getting through 25 questions. Okay, I'm gonna
May-
actually
we may just we might
I'm
do
gonna
this
try and pick
next
some from people that are new to
Yeah.
give them a chance, a voice. Not that we don't love our regulars. Pam Pittman asks, how will state governors be able to pull off bucking the new president's agenda, such as Massachusetts and California have already announced? How will they actually be able to pull that off?
Repeat the first half of that again.
How will the governors in the states that are the opposite party be able to buck the new president's agenda? I guess Massachusetts and California have already come out and said we're going to buck the system. How can they do that?
Right. Well, okay. So number one, I don't know. But and the reason that they're saying we're going to buck the system, but in California at least they're calling the legislature back in to have
Mhm.
a meeting and talk about this. So they don't necessarily know either. I do think that in doing that loudly and publicly, that's important because it's going to encourage other states to do the same thing, which comes to my second point, which is federalism. The fact that we have two levels of government. And in recent years, you know, states saying state rights, and then suddenly when they have control of the government saying, to heck with the states. The ways in which people thinking about the national government and state governments and what has power and what doesn't have power is shifting all over the place. But the fact of the matter is we still do have a government that is federal, meaning two levels. There's a national government, there's a state level government. So part of the answer to how are states going to do this starts with the simple fact that states are their own entities under our system of government. Now, don't ask me if the follow-up question is, yeah, but what if there are all kinds of pronouncements on a national level that are meant to override over states? I don't have the answer to that. But what I can say is our system of government is grounded on the fact that states are their own thing with their own governments. What that means and how that plays out, I don't know. But I'm really encouraged by, and I think Newsom in California was the first to do this, if I'm not mistaken. Or at least he's the first I noticed. I was glad to see that because I think that's going to encourage a lot of people to think along the same lines. And, I think they're going to discover with everybody else what can be done. I do sincerely think in ways both good and bad, back to contingency, um, that there are going to be ways to respond in this moment that we're not imagining right now because we haven't had to respond to this moment before. And so, I personally, I'm going to be keeping my eyes open for things that feel to me to be useful and powerful and unexpected in a good way. So again, I don't know what is going to happen in California or Massachusetts. I would hope that there would be other governors in other states who are going to do something similar. Let's come together and talk about this moment and what do we do? We don't know what that looks like or what they're going to do, but federalism matters.
So Kim asks a question that's on my mind a lot. I imagine some other teachers that come here every Friday. She says she sees the Trump Department of Ed, if he's not able to completely eliminate it, as he has said, tying federal funding to the teaching of states who adopt whitewashed history curriculum. What avenues do we have to fight back on that?
Yeah, it's going to be first off, I don't know, but the question is important because the question is, um, what avenues do we have? And the fact is, there will be avenues. I don't know what they are, but there will be. Okay, hang on a sec here, guys. Let's drop the California is in chaos argument, which is heating up, and people are now using capital letters. Um, I don't think California is in chaos. Whether it is or isn't, that's the least of our concerns.
Yeah.
So let's take a deep breath, guys, and beam off the California is in chaos conversation, and sort of stay here with us. Um,
Thank you,
so
Jan, for addressing that.
yeah,
Um,
so everybody, let's remember that we're a we, and I'm really happy that we're all here. And what I've loved about this community is that not everybody agrees. And so now we're seeing people who are not agreeing being angry and scared and short-tempered. And I get that. I've been refraining from just swearing my heart out on social media because I keep thinking, but my students will see it. My
that's
niece will see
right.
it. At any rate, everybody to
Take a breath.
take a breath. Because the fact that we're here really matters, and the fact that we don't all agree really matters. And now education.
Okay.
So
Education.
I don't know what avenues exist, and I think it's a smart question to ask. I think that's going to be one community of many that it will make sense to get into communities of people and talk about that, right? I mean, Annie, you can talk about this better than I, but generally speaking, the answer to that question will lie in people coming together and figuring out different ways of teaching in the face of different demands and barriers to teaching. But you give me some of your ideas, Annie, since this is moving.
So this is a something that we faced here in Virginia, and it was kind of played out on a national scale. But we fought back very hard when they tried to do that here in Virginia, and our governor, who is from a party I didn't vote for, um, he found out what happens when you make a lot of history teachers mad. So it really kind of derailed a lot of his other plans, but it was because there was already a community. So going back to that idea of community, he underestimated that the history teachers and the history professors, that whole K-16 continuum, were already talking to each other and already had a relationship, and the museum people were in that community. And so he didn't expect, and students, a lot of students stepped up and said, I want to learn the truth and I want to see people who look like me in my history class. And by all of those groups, college professors, K-12 teachers, museum educators, historians, coming together and standing up and fact checking every single word in the version that they were trying to sell us, and a very large social media campaign, we fought back and we got to keep 90% of what we wanted. So I think it's going to come down to that local, vigilant history community. Teachers are being bullied and we're losing teachers. So you have to stick up for the teachers in your community. Carolee and I see this every day, as do other teachers in the chat. Um, please go hug a teacher, but make sure it's okay with them first.
But that raises another point that is important to make too, is that I'm sure that many of you like me are now imagining like a spectrum of horribles, like everything that can happen that's bad that can happen, right? And education is one of those things. But the point you just made, Annie, is a really important one. Not everything that people try to do is going to be achievable. Sometimes it'll be because it's really just not achievable, and it hasn't been thought through. Sometimes it'll be because there's, in some way or another, there's been some kind of pushback. I don't know what pushback's going to look like coming down the road. I don't know, but local, like you just said, Annie, local and community and people coming together is going to be a big part of it. So don't assume that the worst things that you can imagine automatically will happen, and that there people won't find ways to stand in the way. And I don't know what that looks like. And I can think of all kinds of reasons. And many people are saying them, right? Like, you can't stand in the way. You're going to get punished because you're standing in the way. I believe me, I understand the level of threat that people are feeling right now. And I'm sharing that with you. But that doesn't mean there isn't a way to stand up. It really doesn't. We just are going to have to figure out the way to do it. And as I said, as silly and superficial as it sounds, honestly, community is going to be the starting point. Community is going to be the start of organizing. Community is going to be the start of adapting. Community is going to be the start of us supporting each other. Community, really. Um, in some way, I've been here for now 241 episodes preaching community, and I always meant it. But this week, I mean it in a more immediate and concrete way than I've ever meant it before, just as sincerely, but even more powerfully.
Okay,
Did
DB.
remember, Carolee. I know. I'm so proud of myself. I always forget the number of episodes that we're on. I forget it automatically for those who are new here.
I
And
think.
anyway, okay, go on.
Okay, so this question comes from DB. He says the early, or he or she, I'm not sure because it's initials. The early media narrative seems to be a red wave or red realignment with the economy as the main grievance. But it looks like Trump will actually end up getting slightly fewer votes than 2020, and Harris will end up getting 10 to 11 million fewer votes than Biden did in 2020. Isn't that narrative more like a blue wave of apathy?
I don't know, and I fully don't I don't understand that yet, to be totally honest. I have not been able to put those pieces together. Granted, it's easier to notice the people who are not apathetic, right? And certainly I was among the non-apathetic group, and we saw the non-apathy in the massive rallies and in the response to Harris. That was not apathy. I don't have any data or any understanding of apathy, and and the media, of course, started out saying, oh, they don't care, the resistance is defeated, whatever. I haven't been convinced of that narrative. I don't understand how that relates to the current moment, and I'm taking information in, so I can't address that. I do want to mention two conversations that I had relates to the economy part of that question. I was one of many, many, many people that when people were like, yeah, it's all about the economy, and then laughed. It was like, yeah, sure, it's about the economy. It's about, race and gender more than anything else. It's about whiteness and maleness. And I don't think that that part of it is untrue. It's about whiteness. It's about maleness. It's about entitlement, and it's about power. The economy angle, I'm thinking about a little differently. And here's why. I had two conversations. Those of you who know me know I talk to everybody, for better and worse. So I talked to someone doing some work for me in New York, and he's Eastern European. And he asked me who I was voting for. We were talking about something else, and I told him Harris. And he said, I think I'm going to vote for Trump. And I said, why? And he said, well, I think we need change. We need a new system. We need to shake things up. And Harris is more of the same. And I think I'm a small business, and I think Trump's going to be better for small business. Anyway, he went on in that vein. And I said, okay, I hear what you're saying, but let me tell you what I'm thinking. I'm scared that he's going to be install himself as a dictator. That's what I'm scared of. He's Eastern European, and he just got silent. And then he said, dictator. That's a word. He had clearly not thought about it before. The political angle of this had not percolated, and to a degree that for those of us who've been in the mix, it's hard to believe. It had not occurred to him. He actually said, I'm changing my mind. I have to go. Maybe I changed a vote. I don't know. But then the next day, my my Uber driver, and I realize this is ridiculous, but I think person to person contact is insight. My Uber driver and I began talking, and it ended up she offered this information. First, she said, I voted for Trump. And again, I said, why? And she said, well, I was really undecided, blah, 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 blah. But in the end, I'm a small business person and I don't believe in the system anymore. And the system needs to change. And it's going to be almost an exact version of what this other person had said to me. And again, and not only that, but she was trans. She's a trans woman who voted for Trump. And we stopped when I got to my destination. We actually just sat and talked. And she said, I'm going to lose my hormones because I made this vote. Like, I understand that's going to happen, but I think, what I really care about is business and small business people being able to survive. So I said to her what I said to this other person. You know, I understand what you're saying totally, but um, I'm scared that he's going to install himself as a dictator. And she said, well, that wouldn't happen. I mean, it's not like he's used that word, is it? And I said, yeah, actually, he has. That whole conversation did not make its way to her. Now, she said to me, I'm uneducated. I don't read the news. She is living her life. But the fact that I talked to two people who came up with this sort of economic understanding and hadn't heard or thought about dictator, I don't know what that means. I can't begin to interpret it, but the fact that I heard that from two people and particularly from a trans woman, um, that means something. I don't know what it means yet, but it certainly got me thinking that I need to recalculate some of what I'm thinking here about what just happened in addition to race and gender. Um, I wonder if the political message, democracy is in danger, this is going to be a dictatorship, did not percolate out to some chunk of the population in a way that we all thought, if we were spreading that message, we all thought it would because it was so obvious. I don't know. I throw that out there as evidence.
Right. Our good friend Linda, who's with us every week and got to meet your friend Heather this week, which she was very excited about. Linda says people voted against their own interest and the interest of other people on the planet. I think we're not able to overcome the flood of misinformation and propaganda. Many tried as hard as we could to educate and inform. Um, it feels like it's too late. Is there any point in still trying?
Repeat that again because I want to be sure I'm answering the question I
She said,
heard.
there was so much misinformation out there, and then she and others kept trying to inform people in their vicinity,
Right.
and now it just feels like it's too late. She's saying, is there any point in even continuing to try?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, and you're absolutely right. This is in misinformation, disinformation. That's how part of how we got to where we are. The suppressing of information, that is how we got to where we are. And can we fight that information? I don't know. But that doesn't mean we give up, right? It means we get better at messaging, right? It means we get better at figuring out how to say what we need to say in a way that's effective. And again, I don't have any answers about that, but we just went through what we just went through and we learned from it lessons that, are pretty dire, but we learned. So now we know that, right? We know the power of that. We know in this particular age with our particular technologies, we know how that can work. So now we restock, we rethink, we decide what to do. But I would say, and several people have said to me again, all on social media, I want to like why it's not even worth trying. It's not even worth trying. I think that that is wrong. From the bottom of my heart, I think that that is wrong. I don't know what trying looks like. I don't know what we'll be doing. I don't. But I know with all of my heart, folks, I swear, you guys are my community. With all of my heart, I know that we have to keep trying. I do. We do not say it's bigger than us, we can't do this and step down. We don't. We don't. And this brings us back to community. We are here, this community, we are here for each other. And I realize it's goofy. It's a virtual community that exists in a white column on the side of my screen. But this is a community of people who in spirit are here for each other and have been for several years. I am feeling a lot of feelings, right? I know all of you are too. I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling despondent, I'm feeling scared, I'm feeling outraged, I'm feeling a lot of things. Um, and I'm part of me even can ask myself the question, um, is it worth it still fighting? But that question does not, and there's no, I never finish asking that question because the fact of the matter is, yes, it is. It is worth continuing on. It is worth pushing forward. It is worth standing up for what is right. It is. The only way that what is right will be restored and can prosper is if people stand up for it. It doesn't exist without us. It doesn't. Morality and truth and caring and inclusiveness, that all relies on us. It does. So, I realize I'm sounding really cheerleadery, and I don't mean to. I'm honestly expressing to you what I am hanging on to right now, which is we need to stand up for what we think is right. And if we do that together, it's going to feel better, it's going to work better, and we'll coming together, we'll have better ideas about what we need to do and can do. Um, but please give yourself space to feel maybe hopeless in the moment, and then sit up, have some coffee and some chocolate, and realize that we have to stand up for what we believe in. This is a moment when we stand up for what we believe in. It really, really is. You know, um, not everyone has times in their life that require them to think on this level, in which it really matters for you to stand up for what you believe in, like fundamentally matters. This is one of those moments. Like, this is our fight, right? This is our moment. This is where we are. And we just need to be in this moment together. We do. I don't know what that means. I'm going to spend this weekend feeling um, happy and sad and angry and scared, but I'm also going to do what I continue doing this week, which is talking to people, talking to students, talking to you guys, talking to people, because as long as we're together talking and figuring this out, we will and can stand up for what is right. Right. Morality hasn't vanished. It hasn't. It's just being squashed, but it's there. I want to pump some air back in it. I want to stand up for it. I want to make it strong. And that's only going to happen with us. That's only going to happen if we do that in some way, whatever that way is, in a lot of different ways, if we do that together. I know I'm very soapboxy, but you can tell, I, honest to God, I believe this to the bottom of my heart. I do. I really do. I said at that panel I was at yesterday, um, that I'm a person who started my career as a historian thinking that I would be in rooms by myself reading dead people's mail. And I liked it too. Um, my closest friend said to me a year or two ago, um, "You're a real activist." And it gave me pause, right? Because I was like, "What? Well, huh?" Um, you asked me 5, 6, 7 years ago if I would have applied that word to myself, and I would say no. What? Now that said, I have done activist type things, but in this moment where we are, I'm doing, I'm in a mindset that I've never been in before. Um, we all need to kind of think about where we are and what that means and what we want to do with that moment. No one fully could have predicted where we are. We could have predicted it, but we didn't necessarily assume it would happen. Be in the moment and never forget in your heart of hearts what you think is right, and then be there with other people to support what you believe is right. Um, I'm trying to catch up. Uh, oh, that's Lori. Courage doesn't happen in the absence of fear. I like that thought. I'm trying to catch up. I have been not following the chat because I've been like,
On way too fast. Yep. So I did put in there, we do have a Slack group. Um, if you would like to join, I put the directions in there somewhere, but basically you just add the word Slack in all caps because I control F it after we hang up, and that's how I find it. And then put your email. If you don't feel comfortable sharing your email publicly, I also put my email in there. You can email me privately, and I can add you. I will let you guys know it'll be very late tonight because as soon as we're done here, I have to have a quick chat with my buddy Dr. Ayers, and then I got to hit the road to get to Baltimore before the traffic. So so I'll add my
yeah.
new Slack friends in late tonight after I get to Baltimore.
And thank you, because one of the things, and I forgot about it. Now it's good. People are like posting things and they want to post the Slack link again. One of the things that I was wrestling with in the back of my mind as I've been talking here is there needs to be a space where people can talk when they need to talk, and not wait till Fridays at 10 a.m. So
And that's the case.
maybe Slack might be it, which might mean I have to like actually be in Slack because I kind of haven't, I know it's there, I just kind of haven't used it. But at any rate, that could be a space where we just are there to engage with each other, folks. The thing I will say is this is a real community. Honestly,
It is.
and I think people sometimes are like, oh, you're so optimistic and you're so Pollyannish and you're so rah rah. This there are people all over the world here right now, and they've been coming for 240 weeks. And we've been asking hard questions and talking with each other about them. And as I said, helping each other and being with each other outside of this realm. This has become a community, and you heard it at the outset when Claire and I and Annie said, and so many people, oh my gosh, I can't wait till Friday. I need the community. If you are feeling as I was, I need to be with these people. That's a community, folks. Ta-da! I know I say it every week that we are one, but I think this week, hopefully you feel in your gut like we really are one. And I think that's going to be ever more important.
And NCHE is a bigger offshoot of that community. Dalton Savage is with us. I'm going to call out my friend Dalton. Dalton, like Claire, works for NCHE and leads a lot of their teacher programs, and he was a classroom teacher himself. And they do great webinars during the middle of the week. So there's lots that NCHE can do, especially for those of you that are teachers. But the Slack group and us having little meetups. Like whenever I travel to a conference, I try and let you guys know, hey, does anybody live here or there? I'm going to be there for 3 days. And we've had lots of fun meetups that way too. So lean into the community. That's what we're here for.
Miranda, was it you who sent me a picture of voting in your newbie t-shirt? Someone sent me a photograph of them in their newbie t-shirt voting. It was. Okay. So for those of you who are new here, Newbie was my rescue budgie, my rescue parakeet, who became, Newbie the history bird. And he had a real presence and he had a lot to say about politics and history. And he died about a year ago. But NCHE kind of adopted Newbie as a mascot. History Matters, and so do meetups. And then they're probably still out selling, I don't even know, T-shirts that say, Yay History, and it has Newbie the History Bird on it. Anyway, Miranda, thank you. She sent me a photo of her voting with her Newbie the History Bird T-shirt. And I said, like, that means more than I can say. It actually really did. Made me cry in a good way. Anyway, okay. So Newbie was how you found 80. 80? Is that how I know I see you on social media. Is it 8? Is that how I say your name? I hope so. The Noobs Abides. Yes. Um, some people found History Matters through Newbie, which is kind of wonderful. Newbie goes on. Anyway, Addie, Addie, Addie. Okay, thank you. Um, okay, so we're a couple minutes past. Let me explain what happens next. So we are now going to go into the after party. That's probably going to be pretty wild today. What that means is we stop recording. So we can be even freer and easier in our conversation and talk about whatever the heck we want to talk about. If you beamed in through the NCHE website, stay right where you are, and poof, you're going to be in that after party. If you are watching us on Facebook, you need to leave Facebook to go to the after party. You need to go to ncheteach.org/conversations. That's ncheteach.org/conversations. And then you too, poof, will be in the after party. For this week, more than most weeks, I want to say thank you for engaging in the conversation of democracy, you guys. We're going to keep engaging in the conversation of democracy every week. We will. And we'll figure it out as we go, and we'll do it together, and we'll be a community. We already won. The number of us who were like, I have to get to Friday to be with my people. That's sorry, guys, you're a community. You can't deny it. Anyway, so thank you for engaging in this conversation. We're good at it now, so we can keep going.
Absolutely.
Be nice to yourself over the weekend. Do some nice things for yourself. I know I have
God,
a
it's so
martini.
nice out.
Is it? So I know I have a martini waiting at the end of the day, but I might
It's
actually go.
like spring break here the last 3 days. I put in the chat earlier. I feel like Mother Nature thought we needed a hug.
That's good.
So she brought
Uh,
back spring break.
Everybody take care of yourself. Really be nice to yourself so that you can, you know, martini
Roy
glass.
binging Halloween candy.
You guys are dangerous now.
Martinis.
I'm now not going to be able to keep a straight face. At any rate, thank you for the martini glasses. But really take care of yourself, folks. Be nice to yourself, and hug people. And I'm gonna, oh no, we're having the after party. I'm just not everybody's sticking around. We are having the
We
after
are
party.
having the after party.
So yeah, I will shut up for 5 minutes and we can go to the after party.